Alrighty, well hi everyone. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Seattle. This is so exciting. We are live streaming on Facebook, a thing we've never done before. We're at a new space. This is our first time being in person since COVID. Well, since in 2022 we did have one event last year in person. But we are hoping to do this more, and especially if you folks, if the community demands it, we'll be here. So want to give a big shout out to the Expansive Workspace who is letting us use this space. Joy is, do you want to say anything about the space, Joy?
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming. I can do tours after the event today, so if you guys want to book a tour with me, just come find me, tag on my plate, and I can show you all the spaces.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great, yeah, thank you. We are working on getting our QR code printed out, so if you are not on our email list, we would love to have you join our email list. Who has ever been to a 1 Million Cups before?
Online too?
Yeah, online counts. Yep, cool, awesome. And so then everybody else is new. So thanks for being here and for showing up. How many people found us through Meetup? A lot of people? Yeah, most of you. Okay, great. Any other places you heard about us?
Through other people.
Through other people, yeah, great. Cool. Alrighty. So we'll just ask for all of your forgiveness with any of the tech issues that may or may not happen today. So the 1 Million Cups organizing team, we're all wearing our t-shirts, so if you need anything, please feel free to bug one of us. We're happy to help accommodate whatever your needs might be. Obviously, maintain physical distancing or COVID procedures as best as you feel that feels good for you. Obviously, we've got refreshments and we've got the eating space out there. This is not like anything formal here. You're welcome to get up and take care of your needs throughout our conversation today. If there are any accessibility needs or anything, please grab one of us in a t-shirt and we're happy to help you out. Restrooms, there are restrooms on every floor.
Yeah, and the easiest way, you just head out this door to the right and just keep going straight, and you'll eventually see a sign, and then follow your path.
But yeah, there's restrooms on every floor, so if this one's full, you can pop down to the next one. And then, exits are back where we came in. And again, thank you to the Expansive for letting us be here, and thank you all for making the trip down. My name is Katie McLaughlin. I'm one of the organizers here with 1 Million Cups. And we'll talk a little bit about what 1 Million Cups is. So 1 Million Cups, we're part of a nationwide organization where we are one chapter, and there are chapters all over the country that are meeting every Wednesday at 9 a.m. In their respective time zone. And so right now there's 134 different communities and 3,500 plus attendees. A lot of folks are still on Zoom. Some people have been doing hybrid events. Some people are just kind of restarting doing some of their in-person events, like us. But we were oh God, that's the wrong thing.
This was forewarned, though.
It was forewarned. I asked for forgiveness in advance. Okay. It's because it's actually like a mouse too, which I don't really want it to be. So this is a example of what 1 Million Cups looks like, kind of like this in person. And this is our previous space. We were over at the Collective in South Lake Union. So, but over 8,000 entrepreneurs have presented their ideas at 1 Million Cups, and often for the very first time. And 1 Million Cups is an entrepreneur organization, but our 3 pillars are education, presentations, and connection. So some of that education process is going to happen right here, where we're going to have a Q&A and there's going to be feedback time, and that's a great time for our presenters and entrepreneurs to learn. But the learning process also happens behind the scenes, in between weeks, when we are connecting with each other, learning from each other, and also we do coaching for presenters as well. Obviously, you're going to see some presentations today, and then hope that you make some good connections today with other folks here. So what are we about? What makes our community different than just your standard entrepreneur event? We're about sharing ideas, offering help and asking for help, and we're about building community. So we hope that you won't just be here for today, but that you may join us another time and feel like you're part of this community. And we're really all about supporting each other, and the concept of 1 Million Cups was based on an article that came out which talked about how entrepreneurship is built over 1 million cups of coffee. Imagine if there were 1 million cups of coffee that entrepreneurs were sharing with other entrepreneurs, and how that would help support our economy and people's lives, and help us to make a difference in the world. So what makes us different is that we're about presentations, not pitches. So So today you're not going to see a pitch, you're going to see a presentation where someone's sharing their story. We're about connecting, not networking. So obviously you're welcome to connect with each other and make plans to see each other again, but we don't want this to feel like a, oh, what's my elevator pitch networking kind of event. That's not what we're about. So we're also for the community and by the community. All of us wearing t-shirts, we're all volunteers. We just love this community and love helping support each other as entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be in this space. You can just be a creator, somebody who's interested in supporting other people who have ideas and want to create something. And we're also passionate about being radically and intentionally inclusive. So if there's anything that we can do to help support inclusivity in our community, anything to help meet your needs, please let us know. So we have a link tree. That's the easiest way to get a hold of 1MC Seattle. We're working on getting a QR code printout so you can actually scan it because, technology. But our link tree is the best way to get a hold of us. That's where we have our Zoom link, so when we are meeting on Zoom, you can grab the Zoom link right from there. You can also watch replays of past events if that sounds interesting to you or you see a cool business. And it's really simple. It's just Linktree and then /1MC Seattle. So thank you again to Expansive for hosting us, and huge thank you to Mighty O Donuts. They donated the donuts and the coffee. We were planning on buying coffee this morning, and they were like, "Hey, wait a minute. We'll take care of you. Just give us 20 minutes." So please, when you pass a Mighty O Donuts, please stop in and be a patron and thank them for supporting the community. We also want to thank some of our community sponsors who help make 1MC happen. There's a lot of technology that we need in order to connect with people. So Method Customization and McLaughlin Method help with some of our technology. You've seen our community volunteers. We're all wearing t-shirts. Because it's a volunteer position, we're not all here all the time, and so we're always looking for people who feel like this is a cool community and you want to see this happen more. Please feel free to contact any one of us, and we'd be happy to talk to you about what it would mean to help us out. It's a pretty low commitment, and you can even just help if you're like, cool, I know a lot about live streaming to Facebook. This is my first time, so we would love somebody who knew that better than I do. Moving right along, what to expect today. So we always start with a little bit of coffee and conversation. It's a lot easier to do when we're in person because we can have physical coffee and you can talk to people in person. But we also do that on Zoom as well. We're going to have 2 6-minute presentations. And so each of the presenters is going to have at 6 minutes approximately to share their story about their business. And then really the magic happens in the 20 minutes of Q&A and feedback. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but that'll be the opportunity for all of you to ask questions, to give feedback. Have you ever thought about? And then we'll still be around after the end of our presentation, so you could feel free to keep connecting and keep munching and explore the space. So this week we have 2 presenters who also happen to be organizers, but also we're interested in presenting their business for the first time. So we've got Partner Ally and 10K Creators are presenting today. And here's how you can be a supportive listener. So it's a lot easier to be a supportive listener when you're in person, right? When we can see you and they can see you. But think about things like what stands out for you from this person's story, from their presentation, from their business. Is there something you want to learn more about? That could become a good question. Is there an area where maybe you could share your expertise? And rather than sharing that from a should perspective, it's like a have you ever thought about, or what if you were to try? So that way it really feels like this is a supportive feedback or supportive education rather than feeling like, oh, you're not going to do well, right? So ultimately, that's a little bit of what you need to know about 1MC. And I think we're ready to go for our first presenter. So give it up for Dan.
Hi, I'm not blocking this. Hi, I'm Dan Norton, Partner Ally, and I'll step over here a little bit so I'm not blocking that. Dan Norton, pronouns he, him. I was the person checking you in at the door for a little while there. And I'd like to start with highlighting a few things that some small businesses come up against. Oftentimes, you have an owner or a founder, and they may have a vision. They know exactly where they're headed. They may even be expert at whatever they're doing, whatever the company provides. They're not necessarily focused on a lot of foundational back office pieces that are going to support them long term. And they may be just growing so fast that they just don't have time or resources to put those in place, or they may not even know what they're going to put in place for that next tier of growth of the company. And sometimes they are like a bottleneck of all the decisions and workflow in their company, and they're not necessarily empowering the rest of their team. So that's where I'm hoping to come in. I want to work side by side with the owner and their leadership team to help them not to do it, but to help them put intentional, scalable, and sustainable systems in place for their business. So this perspective is born from my own time as a small business owner. I had along with my business partner, we had a small business, we grew it, we had a software company that we spun off of that to serve businesses like ourselves. And over the course of over 30 years of being a small business owner, along with involvement with entrepreneurial organizations and nonprofits and other boards, what I found was a lot of these challenges that I mentioned earlier, and some related to that, seem to be fairly universal between a lot of small business owners. So I saw an opportunity. Now, it's only myself. I am all the partner ally. That's it for right now. But so I see I have to be strategic on how I approach this, of course, being just myself. But the three roles that I really see is that I want to be a partner to that business owner, to them personally, because at the end of the day, the business owner is a person. They have their own individual hopes and aspirations and goals for the company. So I want to support them because I've been through that entrepreneurial journey. Also, to focus on strategic planning. A lot of businesses have, they need plans, and it depends on your type and size of the business. You could have a myriad of different plans. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everything is intentional, that everybody's on the same page, and we have an opportunity to improve on that plan. You'd be surprised how many small business owners don't have a plan. And then underlying all of that is process and systems. So that's just, me helping them capture that tribal knowledge, the best practices, possibly stuff that they're already doing, and then, passing that along and making sure that their team moving forward is taking that mindset so that they're sustainable. So the type of business that I feel I'm best suited to work with is one that has team members. So they have full-time employees, people outside of the owners and or founders of the business. They have revenue, so they have some sort of business model that's working, and they're looking to grow the company. So without that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest in some of those things. Ideally, they're around this area, or at least this time zone. I guess in the Zoom world, just time zone is what matters. But and most importantly, for me, is that the owner is open to a team kind of collaborative approach. They're willing to look outside themselves for assistance. So hopefully, all of those things, I engage with them. We put together a lot of these different components and elements, and that becomes that basis for alignment for the entire organization. So all the different aspects, all their efforts are more coordinated and organized. Their team and the company as a whole has shared expectations, and they have this mindset within the company of let's invest in a process or system so that we don't have to have that moving forward. And that hopefully that takes the owner out of day-to-day operations, which I think is very important so that they can work on their business and not in the business. So based on some prior discussions that I've had about this, I wanted to clarify what this isn't. It isn't like a pre-packaged solution where I'm like, subscribe to this thing and it's going to take care of all your issues. I want to take a holistic approach where I'm looking at the company. I'm curious and open to whatever they need in the organization, what their priorities are. So I'm not like focused on a single discipline or area of the company or a fractional executive where I'm fulfilling one role. I want to make sure that whatever we develop together is appropriate and they're actually going to implement it. So it's not just me coming down and saying, oh, you should do this, see ya. You know, we want to actually implement this stuff. I think what's key to this is that I'm meeting the company where they're at that moment in time. So whatever is appropriate for that phase of the company and the type of the company, so I have some flexibility on how I engage, whether that's, you know, like project-based or hourly, or some sort of set amount each month. At the end of the day, I want to remove barriers for them to engage me and make sure that no matter where they're at, I might be able to assist them. And at the end of the day, if that all happens correctly, they end up with a team who is familiar with developing those tools. They're usable. I always say I don't want works of art, you know, or a folder that sits on a shelf. We want something that's actually practical and appropriate for them that they can use. And something that's important to me personally is that at the end of the day, whatever we put in place, that it fulfills the owner's vision. You know, that at the end of the day, that business was created to serve some purpose. And I don't want to grandstand or say that it should go in some direction or not. I'm not going to be a stakeholder. I'm not taking equity. I'm there to support their vision at the end of the day. So that's the main thrust. I'm going to leave you with my contact information up here. If I haven't already met you or connected with you before. And I really appreciate everyone's time today. I'm looking forward to feedback.
All right. Well, we can leave that up while we're chatting.
Okay.
Alrighty. So now this is the Q&A and feedback time. Jessica's got her hand up already, so it sounds like she's already got a question. But be thinking about a question or feedback.
Cost. How do you charge people money?
The question is, how do you charge people money?
Yeah. So the model that I'm starting with is simply an hourly approach, and it depends on what exactly I'm doing. And I'm going to explain something first before I explain this. Is that my idea is that I want them to be independent of me. At the end, when I'm done engaging them, hopefully they have, you know, the tools and systems in place that they don't need me moving forward. So I don't want them to utilize me that much, which I know is a little bit counterintuitive. And I know that there's this whole like sell value and not hours. But I want to be as transparent as possible and keep their costs low. So to start off with, it's $200 an hour, which in the business consulting world, if you're familiar with that, is very low. But however, if they want me to facilitate or lead a meeting, then it goes up to about $250 or $300, depending on the type of meeting. And if they want to engage me for more than 40 hours, but I'm thinking about reducing that a month, then it goes into like time and a half or double time after that, because I don't want them to rely on me as the doer or an employee of the company.
Great question. Leif.
Hi Dan, great presentation. I particularly like the part where you said what I am not. I think that's a key thing that's like really helpful. It shows you really thought that through. So really cool idea on that. My question is, how do you make sure that the people you work with actually have the bandwidth to do these things? Presumably all of their staff are fully filled with work to do, but you're saying you're not doing any of the work. So how have you provisioned to make sure that the work can get done that you the leadership team decide on doing?
So the question was, how do you make sure that they have the bandwidth to do the work beyond what Dan is recommending?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I don't want to, if I feel like if I create it on my own, they're not going to have buy-in. They know the business better than me. It's just not going to work simply. However, when I first engage a potential client, I'm giving them a list of like a survey of like what are all the different plans and systems that you have already in place. Part of that is when we get into the where are you headed and what's your strategic direction. I'm asking them what resources have they allocated already to accomplish those strategic resources. So it's true if they come in and say, hey, I need somebody to do all of this, you're right, it's not going to work for me. And I'm focused on helping them with their plan. Now, if they say, we don't have a strategic plan, we haven't allocated resources to all this, then I'm prepared to facilitate that strategic plan. And I actually love strategic planning. So part of me almost hopes that they don't have one. Then part of that process is saying, okay, these are all the different plans, this is what we're going to accomplish, these are the timelines, these are the resources and monies that you're going to allocate towards those things. So I do want to be very intentional and not just, it's kind of a balancing point because I think most people don't know what they don't know, and they may not even know what it's going to take to implement it, but I'm hoping to approach it with making sure that they have some idea going into it.
Other questions? Yeah. And we tell us your name?
Yeah, Owen.
Owen, thanks.
Ken, I actually am a founder, partner, and we were up to about 25 people pre-COVID. And one of the things that, although we had a vision, one of the things that we realized when we had to scale down during COVID was that we had no clue on all the tools we used in our small company.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody and their uncle can go and sign up for a free tier or something like this of a certain tool, and you don't know about it until they're gone.
Yeah.
And that now, where's all this stuff? It's half here, it's half there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I was to engage you as a customer, I wouldn't even be able to give you the list of tools that are in my company.
Yeah.
And I think that when you stated before, you're not this kind of solution in a box kind of a thing. I know that for our company, I would have loved guidance on different tools because there's so much overlap in the tools today. Mm-hmm. Like, is it in Confluence? Is it in G Drive? Is it in this? Is it not?
Yeah.
But they all do the same thing, and there's nobody's taking it. Nobody took a decision on our company. We just let people do what they wanted because we were in a hurry.
Yeah.
And in the end, we paid dearly for them. We paid really dearly.
Yeah.
And I think that as part of what I would have valued from you, if I was engaged, was to say, you've got 200 tools where 3 would do, and you may want to enforce a little bit some.
Yeah. And
So Owen described some of his challenges with his business and everybody having all these different tools, and so thought that maybe tooling or recommendations on tooling and how do we kind of consolidate that, and take it over, Dan.
Yeah, and I think that what you're kind of going towards is kind of the process for the process. For example, I really like to develop process and make sure that everything is intentional and going to serve everybody in the organization. It's as efficient as possible. But there's this balancing between empowering your team, and in a small business, your agility is like one of the strengths, right? You want to be able to empower your team to move forward on something, but you also want to empower them with some sort of guidelines. And what happens is, if you don't have those guidelines of hey, there's this software, it's really cool. And this happens all the time in any business. Whatever software you're using 5 years from now, it's obsolete anyway, right? So you have to have a process for what's the next tool or what's the next thing to do. As long as there's a process built for this is how you vet it, this is how you're going to implement it, this is where you have to capture that information, and you have a process for implementation that somebody else, and you can even say, hey, the frontline person can do this, anybody can do this. As long as you follow this process, then it's documented and captured. And I think you're right. I talk to people that are director of IT or technical services that are responsible for the company's technology, and it gets out of hand really well. It gets out of hand really fast. In fact, That's one of the things that I've encouraged people to do, and I had an IT manager that I told them, you will publish the list of every software that the company uses for the entire company to see, because a lot of people will say, oh no, you're missing this, or why are we paying for this? Nobody uses it. You know, part of that is just being, again, going back to you have to have a plan.
Maybe one or two more questions? Yeah. And we tell us your name?
My name is Mindy. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Glad to be here. So I have a question, but it's going to depend on something that might be a lot more basic. So I think I directionally understand the different puzzle pieces that you're tackling, but do you think, just for my sake, could you explain in like 2 sentences what you're offering? And then I have a question that maybe that's relevant.
So the ask is to just explain in like maybe 2 sentences what you're offering, just to kind of recap, and then
Yes.
there may be a follow-up.
Yes. So my core offering is to support the business owner and their strategic direction. Support them as an individual, that specific goal, and their strategic direction. And to support the company by directing them towards process and systems and kind of capturing all of that and making sure that all aggregates into a single plan.
Okay.
Cool. Follow-up?
Sort of. Slash thought, because I think from all of the questions here, what I thought might have been most valuable is this concept of like, we will help you get your shit together on internal tooling. And I don't know if that's the same, and I know this is what you said, you're not doing this, but like a fractional CIO or a fractional COO. And so I think more than a question, I'm just a little confused on the specifics of, are you helping founders more in like a coaching perspective of like these are recommendations, or are you saying, okay, you use Airtable, but your team is using like Trello and Notion, and so you have to consolidate all those things. And I think the things that you're saying might be kind of different directions, and I'm not sure. So not a question, but just
No, I get it, and I think what you're speaking to is that the coaching versus directing a little bit.
And specifically also for like tooling or the founder.
Yeah. So it does, I think that coaching piece is primarily what I'm focused on. I think that I'm not interested in coming in and saying, hey, I've read all the documents on your business. I know it better than you. I'm going to tell you what you should do. Even in organizations where I'm very familiar with the organization, if I'm facilitating a strategic plan or an executive meeting, I'm not telling them what they're doing, what to do. I want to ask. I think that once you have experience, you know what questions to ask. You don't necessarily have all the answers. The answers are all right there. So the coaching aspect, that's really my primary thrust, is to do the coaching. Now, at the end of the day, I'm hoping that they come up with all this, but if I'm effective at coaching them and helping them realize how they should be able to do it as appropriate for their organization, then that's a reproducible activity that they can carry forward, and as they grow, they'll know how to do it, and they don't need me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we are getting close on time, so if you still have burning questions, that's a great opportunity to connect with Dan afterwards. We always ask at the end of our Q&A, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? And this is really a springboard question to connect with Dan further. So, Dan.
I'd say that the one thing that I know that this is quite different, and this speaks to maybe the last comment. This is quite different than a lot of other approaches, because I'm not looking at something that somebody else does and saying, oh, I'm going to do that too. I'm trying to tailor this to what I wish I had as a new business owner. So kind of capturing what exactly I'm doing in the messaging piece, I could use help on that. And also, if you see a barrier, kind of a barrier for entry, like that, if as a small business owner, I wouldn't engage you. I think I need that, but I wouldn't engage you because of some specific barrier or confusion, point of confusion. I'd like to understand that as well.
Cool. Yeah, great questions. Thank you, Dan. Another round of applause, and you get a mug for being a presenter. Thank you. Alrighty, so without further ado, we've got our next presenter, Matthew from 10K Creators. Give it up.
I don't know how to use this, and there's no back button. So, hi everyone, Mathew Heggem. Thank you for being here this morning. I really appreciate it. I am the founder of 10kcreators.com, and let's go backwards. That's good news. All right, and what this is really about is the following. I'll explain a little bit more about who I am in a moment, but the long and short of it is that I woke up one day after having served as the president of an accounting firm. My contract had ended, and I woke up and said, now's the time. Now's the time to really think about what kind of an impact I want to have on the world. And I also happen to be a professional artist, and so I turned around and said, well, what could I do to bring those two worlds together? And more importantly, what mission could I carry out that would help other people like me to overcome some of the challenges that I faced in my journey? And so I boiled it down to this, and the mission of 10K Creators is to help 10,000 creatives find their path towards financial freedom. Now, I know that's a loaded statement, and we can unpack that for sure, which I hope we do in the Q&A. But just to give you some context, I have spent 18 years as a self-producing artist. I decided not to go the route of building a nonprofit. I decided to basically make my own money and pay for the art that I wanted to make myself. And what was super awesome about that is that when I lived in New York, I had 2 dance companies. My first production as a dance company broke even, which is very rare in the world of dance. My second dance production actually made money, which I was super proud about. So I'm like very proud. But I learned some really hard lessons along the way, of course. But I was also working in the accounting industry, so I was working directly with entrepreneurs and CEOs who were serving, who needed help with the number side of their business. And I spent a lot of time really sitting down with what I would call creative entrepreneurs, trying to help them to decide, okay, that's a tax question, that's a bookkeeping question, that's a question for your financial advisor, that's a question that your attorney should be talking to your CPA about, and really helping them to navigate this sort of ecosystem of the numbers side of the world of running a business. And really what it boils down to is I've been helping CEOs and founders increase their revenue, improve their operations, develop teams, rebrand and market themselves, build new products and services, and innovate. And I highlight that because what I've also come to understand is that there's an opportunity for creative professionals to be more expressed in their lives inside of the context of business. I do also have a background in the nonprofit world and served as an arts administrator and worked in the workforce development space. And I share that only because I consciously chose, after having I made it to New York, I was a professional dancer, and at the peak of my career, I was also a starving artist. I was living in an artist loft in Brooklyn that had absolutely no heat in the dead of winter, one of the worst winters I've ever experienced. Me and my cat, we had a pile of blankets about this thick in this artist studio out in Brooklyn. It was just the worst scenario to find myself in. And in part, I think it's because I was lacking a lot of information around financial well-being that could have helped me to avoid that. And so the problem is this, in my view. First, I think artists are not well-versed in the world of money. We've heard that often. We know that. If we've worked with artists, we get that sense from them. And they also lack the knowledge and acumen to take ownership of their finances. Sometimes it's so overwhelming and daunting for them that they just don't know where to begin. Oftentimes they're left to fend for themselves in a culture that consistently undervalues them and definitely exploits them left and right without the wherewithal to navigate or negotiate the terms of their agreements and ultimately the protection of their intellectual property. And that being said, there are resources out there, but a lot of the resources are limited in their capacity to serve. It's a single workshop, a single hour. You don't get any support after that. A lot of the support structures are focused on temporary problems, like, oh, you've got a tax form to fill out this year. Let's figure that out, which is important. but it doesn't address some of the long-term issues, and it certainly doesn't address the idea or the concern around creating a sustainable career for them that is also financially rewarding. A lot of the workshops that these artists will find themselves in will be will kind of have a lot of rhetoric around politics and culture and anti-capitalism. And whilst it's important to address some of the systemic issues that the creative community faces, it doesn't pay their bills. It doesn't position them to make better decisions financially, and sometimes it doesn't. It ultimately does. It's a waste of time for a lot of them. And that being said, sometimes it can even drive the artist into a greater state of financial despair, right? Being so overwhelmed and consumed with the concerns around the financial piece, they just don't know what to do, and they kind of throw their hands up and just do the best that they can. And so this is why I created 10K Creators. So here's what this solution is about. First and foremost, there's one-on-one consulting and coaching. That's really important for the artists because they need to have that personalized attention that addresses some of the issues they're facing. I'm a firm believer of accountability and creating accountability structures that are regenerative and support the individual in terms of achieving those goals. Entrepreneurial training is a part of it. Technical assistance, actually helping them to build a spreadsheet, to figure out where to go, how to sign up for something, how to set up something that's like a bookkeeping system, access to experts, vetting qualified professionals to help them on the tax or financial services side is an important part of this work. Creating a collaborative community, and ultimately creating an engine that provides financial support. And so that's the solution that is 10K Creators. So what are we doing right now? Are you keeping track? Okay, good. So what are we doing right now? So we are in pre-revenue, like super pre-revenue, and we're currently implementing the beginning of the journey to test out the idea. So it's starting with a coaching call, a 2-hour coaching call, where I talk to the artists about how they're both making and managing their money. From there, we address the concerns that they have with the behaviors and beliefs that are not supporting them and helping to actually shift the needle around how they make and manage their money. From there, we then create a set of SMART goals and then lay that out over a 3-month period of time in conjunction with an accountability structure that we designed with them to ensure that they actually accomplish those goals. We then move into step 2, which is all about accountability. This is where we put the dates on the calendar. We've got somebody like me who's both left and right brain that can kind of make sure that we're staying on track, keeping focused on the objective. I use WhatsApp to stay in constant communication with the artists I'm working with today. We schedule live huddles to address any of the more complicated issues that come up. And then we leverage a buddy system of working with another artist in the community who's also being a container for support to make sure that they're getting those goals done. Once we complete that, we move into step 3, which is really a reset session to see if those goals were actually aligned with what they wanted to achieve, extend the sprint if necessary, start to talk about cash flow management, which is an important component of addressing their evolution as a financially stable artist or creator, and then providing technical support along the way. Now, in terms of the phase of this business, again, I mentioned earlier, it's pre-revenue. I have 2 clients that I'm actively working with, a couple in the pipeline from various creative backgrounds. We've done we're piloting the 3-step process. My goal in this phase is to also interview 100 artists to talk about how they're making and managing money so I can collect my data. And then ultimately devise the appropriate business plan to address this solution. Then we move into the next phase, which is where I'm going to launch the core offering, begin to really cultivate and build out this community and develop key partnerships that will help me to get to the next level. And then finally from there, build out the operations and marketing engines to support this. In particular, developing an e-commerce platform that's intention is to drive sales to the artist's artwork on the website profile. So in terms of where I need support, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I've struggled in my development of this idea to really hone in on what the ideal customer is, and more importantly, who to say no to. One of the lessons I learned right out of the gate, I have a client who's very resistant to technology, using e-commerce tools, and that's been problematic because we need to drive web traffic to their presence online, but they don't want to have the website, It's difficult. So help around defining the ideal customers is great. And then also designing an equitable revenue structure. I've looked at frameworks of sliding scales, barters and trades to offset that initial investment, and thinking about concepts around scholarship to support people who want to get into the community but might struggle to pay an onboarding fee or a monthly membership fee, depending on what revenue model we choose to go with. So that being said, I am pumped. I know that creatives can change the world, but we do need financial stability in order to be our fullest expression. And so with that, thank you so much for your time.
All right, who's got questions or feedback? Yeah.
Again, my name is Mathew Heggem. So first of all, I love the combination of combining creatives with financial support. I think that's really necessary. I just have a question on what your vision looks like for the community piece, because I could see the value in the one-on-one coaching and stuff, and I also feel like I do professional community building, so this is something I'm really interested in learning more about. So what is your vision? Like, what does the word community look like to you when you're thinking about the business?
So the question is, what does the vision of community look like for Mathew with this?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a loaded question. I think a couple of things that come to mind for me. One, just the ability. I'm thinking about a scalability issue around the accountability, right? So for me, having other artists to pair other artists up with to address some of the accountability infrastructure is one component of the community piece. Another piece of that is power in volume. If we have 10,000 artists who feel financially empowered and are making decisions together and individually, that could have I think, a positive impact on the creative economy or the creative sector as a whole, and ultimately improve the impression that the outside world has on the power of the creative community. And also, I think there's when I've imagined the financial dynamics of this community, one of the things that I'm hopeful for is that this entity can somehow figure out how to spin off profit that then returns back into the community, that can be leveraged as a financing tool for creative projects that require collaboration. So if you've got a filmmaker who needs $10,000 to start a project and wants to work with some of the other artists in the community, that financing can actually back that project, and in the act of creating that project within the community, that there's also collaboration going on to create a higher quality of creative product for the artists in the community. Those are some things that I think about.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Maybe somebody wants to ask a question? Yeah.
My name is Felipe Elizari. I have a little small engineering company, and I actually have a little office there. It seems like both topics have something related to coaching.
Yeah.
Really needed stuff, right? Especially when you're starting business. Coaching financial, coaching strategic, right? But how do you, for the people that need the most, my hypothesis is people that are overworked, are almost in the red line, if not already in the red line. And it's difficult for them. They know they need this, but how do they get this and be able to pay you and actually be able to not only pay you but also take the time that it takes to put the effort, which is important. Long term, this is going to be important. But how do you multiply yourself to do this?
Yeah, great question. So, kind of summing that up, like how, if your customers are likely going to really need you and may not have the funds to pay you, how is that going to work? And especially if they may not have the time, what are your thoughts on
Good
that?
question. So I think a couple of things I'm looking at. One, just to be clear, I'm also considering a training model and resources online through the membership that would allow for the scalability and access to be greater. So it's not just me coaching people. And my intention is to teach the creators how to also coach accountability, which is why the accountability structures are so important. But to go back to your question about the affordability factor, One of the things that I've noticed in designing the different revenue models that were available for this is that a lot of people like me in the business context that work with artists will often barter or arrange some sort of a commission on the sale of artwork, which is the intention, to be clear, with the e-commerce side of this business. I want there to be a commission structure. But first and foremost, the threshold, the highest percentage of commission taken by the model I've created so far was 12.5%, which is not a lot compared to some artists whose work is being commissioned out at 40, 50, 60, 70% by the agent. So commission is a factor. And then the other thing to address the accessibility issue with the artist who's struggling, again, it goes back to the question about what is an equitable model. One of the things that I'm looking at is only taking commission based on a certain sales target. So in the design of the infrastructure, after we pass the first 3 steps and move into the next phase, one of the games I've designed to do with the artist is to make $1,000. But here's the thing, I'm not going to take anything until you hit 1,000, and I'm only going to take 10%. And so if they're not willing to do the work with me, that's a different problem. I can't get them to sit in front of a computer and type an email. But if they're willing to play that game with me and they're willing to hit the $1,000 mark, then they will make money and I will make money. I'm hoping that an artist would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So in terms of the financial freedom aspect, are you trying to help artists generate more money from their sales and like on the front end, or are you looking more towards like the back end? Like once they have that money, are they using it wisely? Are they saving it? Are they investing? Where are you trying to help?
Yeah,
it's good question. Are you trying to help them make more money, or are you trying to help them once they have money make decisions and invest and what have you?
Yeah, so the short answer is both, right? And the reason why I say that is because if you don't have a perspective on what's possible and you don't understand all of the different ways that you can leverage your assets, including your cash, to position yourself towards a future that isn't just about paying your bills today. I know you're a financial advisor, right? Yeah, but also about thinking about retirement in the long term and health and all of the insurance products that you need, even real estate, right? If you're not thinking about that stuff, you're shortchanging yourself. And so part of it is saying, okay, if you're not making money, it's going to be hard to manage it. So let's look at how you're making money first. Then let's optimize that. Then if you notice in step 3, I talk about cash flow support. That to me is the first step. It's like, okay, so now you've got money coming in. What are you actually doing with that cash? How are you sorting that money? How are you, in essence, managing the flow of that? And then if they hit a certain threshold financially, then they start to become capable of, relative to their life circumstances, organizing those finances towards the appropriate financial tools to support their long-term success. So I want both. I don't want them to just be making a bunch of money and then wasting it and not thinking about the future. I want them to have that long-term intention as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mark here, and Nancy too. Yeah, so you mentioned your free revenue. Like, kind of, what's your runway to get to that point? Are you seeking investment? Like this presentation, is this for investors, or is this for like just the creatives themselves? Like, yeah, this is what it's going to be.
So questions about kind of runway and like what's kind of your goal here? Are you hoping to get investment or things like that to help sustain you?
Yeah, I want to move out of pre-rev as soon as possible, of course.
Yeah.
But I think I've planned it out so that at the moment I can wait until May or June to actually start asking for financial return on this. If anything, just to break even and cover the costs. So I think that's sort of the timeline I'm working with, and in part because I want the time to be able to talk to those 100 artists to make sure that A, I'm building a pipeline, and that B, I'm also creating informed decisions on what's going to work. To answer the other part of your question, I'm not in the place yet to consider investors, to be frank. I mean, I need to understand and know what my business model is, how to project it out, and be clear about what kind of capital I would need to address that.
Totally, I just wasn't sure if that was even a part of the plan, just like future.
I think once we get to the e-commerce side of things, I might be interested in that,
Right.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric?
So, is this going to be a local-only business, or are you thinking this is something to be national? Because you've got experience in New York and here.
Yeah.
So, the reason I ask that is because any place that you do this in the Zoom world and how we're having, the key to one of the things you can bring, it seems, is you'll know what the venues are, what the local scene is, who's important, who to send people to see, and is that something that's a future for you, or are you just starting here, or are you gonna? Is that where your growth is heading, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely has to be national. I mean, I have aspirations to have an international conversation, but frankly, the tax and legal dynamics around entrepreneurship are completely different in other countries. So I've chosen to focus on just the U.S. I'm thinking right now that I'll be focused on more like major cities like Seattle, LA, Portland, New York, Miami, etc., where there is already infrastructure to tap into to support the artists. But ultimately, I want to work with artists across the country.
Maybe one final question? Yeah.
It seems like it's, for lack of a better term, producing 2.0. Because it sounds a lot like what you're saying is what producers used to do for artists, which is they would have a stable of artists, they're cultivating them, you're moving them forward, and you're kind of taking that step to a further point by saying, you know, I'm going to help you. I mean, almost like the movie stars of the 20s, you know, that they had guys who would do their books for them, all for the studio.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a little bit like what you're proposing. It's a little bit like that.
Is it kind of like a producing 2.0? I like that kind of phrase. Or, you know, how does that relate to your business?
Yeah, I mean, I would aspire towards that. I mean, ultimately, I want the 10,000 creators to be making great work. And hopefully they'll be so successful and so wrapped up in their studio work that they will need business infrastructure to address the production elements of the operations that they're running. I also know from personal experience, having worked in the accounting industry, that if there's nobody there protecting the artists, it's very easy to take advantage of them financially. So I would like this organization to be a watchdog for the financial aspects of running those creative businesses so that we can ensure that they're getting their commissions, we can ensure that their contracts are being upheld. So there will be a business component to this, a business management component to this.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, I'm just going to get back from you. We're going to ask you the final question. What can 1 million cups do for you?
Ask me more questions. And give me the feedback. I really appreciate your responses. And this, you know, I'm an idea person, so I can get lost in the rabbit hole. So if you want to guide me accordingly, that would be greatly appreciated.
And we've got your mug for being a presenter. Give it up for Matthew. Awesome. Well, how was that? Good? Yeah. So if you like that, if you've got a business or an idea, it doesn't even have to be a business. It could be I'm thinking about doing this cool creative project or what have you. We're here to support you and support that. And so, you know, if you're interested in kind of getting up on the virtual or physical stage with 1 Million Cups, all you have to do is just apply to present. It's literally just raising your hand and saying, hey, I want to do this. And we've got a whole, you know, group of organizers that we help to onboard you and help get you ready to present. So it's not like it shouldn't be a scary apply to present kind of thing. But you just have to be willing to, you know, share your story, willing to ask for help, right? Because that's what we're all about here. This is the community helping to support these two entrepreneurs who presented today. So for those of you who didn't present today, raise your hand if you feel like you learned something. Awesome. And that's the other piece that we can keep in mind too, is that just because you're, you know, listening and taking things in and, you know, having part of the conversation, you're also getting an opportunity to learn as well. So, oh God, we're going that way. And then if you thought this was cool and want to see this happen more and want to get involved, please talk to any one of us in the t-shirts. We'd be glad to talk with you. And save our link tree. I'll put it up on both the cameras or both the computers afterwards, so you can see the link tree. But that way you can get notifications about when we're going to be meeting next. You can sign up for our emails. But we're here usually on Zoom. We'll be on Zoom next week, and our Zoom link is on our link tree. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Mark your calendars. Every week we are here. And next week we've got a virtual presenter from Guest Chat. So we're excited to hear about them. And reminder and thank you again to Expansive for hosting us. If you want to get a tour, yes, thank you, Joy. If you want to get a tour, Joy would be glad to do that. We're also able to stay if we give kind of our contact info. We're able to stay and co-work if we'd like to. Please grab some swag. And there's plenty of food. Keep connecting. Thank you again for being here.
And just one thing, I think Joy, did you want to share some information?
Oh, yeah.
Here and just share some information.
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm the area sales manager here at Expansive, and I have a passion for vintage buildings. I love working here. I love helping people grow their business. So I created a little raffle prize. It's a cute little candle, cheese board, and a nice little kitchen towel of the historic Pioneer building. So I thought it was kind of fun. You can leave your business card, and then we'll just do a raffle at the end. And then there's little invites for our next luncheon. You're more than welcome to come to that. The World Trade Center will be providing lunch on February 24th, and we'll be promoting our spaces on that day. So there's an invite there with the QR code. If you can't make it, take the paper, share it with someone that you think would be able to benefit from it, and I'll be happy to show you around today if you need to.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone.